If I tell you that dollar is the currency of the planet Earth, it will not be an exaggeration. The dollar today is the uncrowned king of the financial world. A peek into the history reveals that the famous Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944 sealed this position, with 44 countries agreeing to peg their currencies to dollar, which in turn was backed by the large gold reserves accumulated during the World Wars I and II. This means dollar does not face much of competition from other currencies as on date. The dollar is freely convertible and highly liquid. Naturally, everyone wants to keep the cost of transaction low and therefore prefers dollar or every other currency. The United States is extremely privileged that the dollar is the reserve currency of the world. A reserve currency is required by all other governments to trade for essential commodities such as oil and gold. Governments cannot buy gold with the Iraqi dinar or Indian rupee. The exorbitant privilege is that all other countries have to work and trade to earn dollars, whereas the United States can simply print it for free. For example, if France wants to double its purchase of oil, it has first to figure out a way to earn twice as many dollars. While on the other hand, United States of America can simply print the dollars and buy as much as they want. For decades, the dollar has dominated the global monetary system. Currently, about 60% of foreign exchange reserves held by central banks are in US dollars, and nearly 90% of all currency transactions involve the use of dollar. It is therefore no surprise that the United States is in control of the military prowess of the rest of the world. Money wins wars, and the United States has an unlimited supply at their disposal. Even the Soviet Red Army, with much more boots on the ground, failed to tackle the United States, who simply won the war by funding the uprising in Afghanistan and other rebel countries bordering Soviet Union. But the pertinent question is, why can't countries simply choose to trade in other currencies such as euro or Chinese yuan? Well, the US has the world's deepest and most liquid financial market thanks to the following things: the size of the US economy, the strength of the US economy, open trade and capital flows with fewer restrictions than a lot of other countries, and strong rule of law and property rights with a history of enforcing them. Another, and perhaps the most important part, is the willingness of United States of America to maintain a massive trade deficit. They pay $2 billion per day as debt servicing. In 2022, US bought $3.3 trillion in goods, and foreign countries only bought $2.1 trillion of goods from America. This means dollar becomes the safest and most liquid security for other nations. However, that does not mean that the dollar is invincible. Most countries want de-dollarization, despite of the fact that it is not economically sound to do so. They want to escape the clutches of the gangsterism of US foreign policy, which in the last 2 decades has weaponized its global dollar dominance. Forget international law and trade rules. The US now slaps sanctions on individuals, companies, and countries at will and freezes them out of the global financial system at the drop of a hat. But that's not all. It now feels free to tell independent countries and companies around the world who they can and cannot trade with. The war on Ukraine and the subsequent sanctions on Russia have further sent a shockwave to other strong nations who are not at the friendliest terms with the United States. For example, China. is extremely concerned by the seizure of Russian central bank's foreign exchange reserves following the Ukrainian invasion. In the event of conflict between China and USA, Chinese asset could be at risk too. On top of it, other nations are taking their part in the de-dollarization process of the world. For example, recently, Saudi Arabia's finance minister stated that the oil-rich nation was willing to consider trading in currencies other than the US dollar for the first time in almost 50 years. Chinese and French energy companies completed the first ever deal on LNG using the renminbi currency. It changed the dollar hegemony in the oil and gas trade. The Reserve Bank of India recently allowed central banks from 18 countries to open special Vostro rupee accounts to settle payments in Indian rupee. The IMF's official foreign exchange reserve statistics highlight the manner in which countries are reducing dollar in their official foreign reserves. Despite of all these efforts, it is certain that United States may yet have a long time to abuse its financial position on the world stage by accumulating national debts unimaginable for any other country without causing runaway inflation and financing its vast military-industrial complex, and by weaponizing the dollar as an instrument of foreign policy and as a substitute for military action. At the turn of this century, roughly 70% of the global currency reserves were in the US dollar. Today, despite of all the talks about de-dollarization, it's still only slightly below 60%. So perhaps the US can be complacent and arrogant about it. According to a recent IMF report, countries are diversifying into currencies of smaller economies, which are less volatile and are growing, such as Australian dollar, Canadian dollar, South Korean won, and Swedish krona. The diversification from dollar has therefore begun, but things may go gradually for a long time, and once a threshold, usually unpredictable, is reached, collapse comes swiftly. As Lenin said, there are decades where nothing happens, and there are weeks where decades happens. That's all for the video. Thank you so much for watching, and please do not forget to press the like and subscribe button and hit the bell icon to stay notified for any such further video. Thank you so much.